Officers, what makes you more likely to show mercy when giving a ticket? I'm not an officer or related to any, but I have heard that this is a set of things that help put them at ease. Like after being pulled over, roll down your windows the whole way, put your hazards on, turn your car off, put your keys on the dashboard far enough away from you that it would be obvious you are reaching for them if you do. Note, do this with a toss, do not lean over. This can cause them to think you are going for something or hiding something. Yes, do this even if you have a keyless start. It puts the officer at ease. Hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. Only remove them after checking with the officer. For example, my wallet is in my jacket pocket. My papers are in my glove compartment. May I retrieve them, officer? Since people keep bringing it up, the reason you do not get your items beforehand as he is walking up and such is that all he can see is that you are poking at your stuff. You could be hiding illegal substances or going for a weapon. This increases their stress or suspicion and thus the likelihood of a ticket and or additional searches as permitted by their authority. No fast, sudden movements. Use please and thank you. Own up to what you did. And note, for anyone who might question why your keys should be off to the side, just remember you are sitting in a 2 to 5 ton lethal weapon. Now, these are all things I would forget when being pulled over. Excuse me, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Story 2. When I pull someone over, my goal is to reshape their driving behavior in a positive way. Slow down, stop at stoplights, use turn signals, etc. When I go up to the car to talk to the driver, I'll get a general sense of their attitude. If they're nice, if they seem to understand why they were pulled over, and if they seem receptive about being willing to change their driving behavior in a positive way, then I feel like a warning accomplishes my goal. If they are a huge schmuck to me, if they argue with me about the violation I observed, or if they already have a bunch of tickets on their record for committing the same offense I stopped them for, I am much more likely to write them a ticket because at that point, I don't think a warning will accomplish my goal of improving their driving behavior. I'd say for every ticket I write, I probably give 10 other drivers a warning. I'm a patrol guy though, so traffic is not my main job task. It's something I do when I have free time between answering 911 calls. If you get pulled over by a traffic cop, your likelihood of getting a ticket is going to be a lot higher simply because that's one of his main job functions. It's not uncommon for people to be nervous about getting pulled over, so it's something I run into from time to time. I'll usually just try to be calm and reassuring with them. I find if I try to take a little bit of time making sure I explain clearly what's going on, it goes a long way to helping them understand what's happening and they usually calm down a lot faster. Crying isn't a guaranteed way to get out of a ticket though. If a person's driving history is a complete mess and they haven't learned to improve it, there's a good chance I'll still give them a ticket even if they're crying. So good luck everybody, be nice and it'll probably work out for you. Story 3. Not a cop, but I've got a little experience here. If you're in medicine or emergency services of any kind, you're less likely to get a ticket. This is because a lot of cops are superstitious. They're afraid, not without reason, that someday you might be driving their ambulance. You don't have to be flat out about it, but a t-shirt or a car sticker showing that you're a nurse, a doctor, a paramedic, an EMT will definitely get you brownie points. Nurses get the most leeway. Nurses are the beat cops of the medical profession, and the police want to stay on their good side. And yeah, being female and or attractive helps. Firefighters get the least amount of leeway because there's a decent chance that at some point a cop's girlfriend left him for a firefighter. I'm a very safe driver. The last time I got pulled over was 3 years ago for turning into a corner gas station to skip the red light. I also happened to be late on my registration and inspection because money was tight that month. I was wearing my EMT training t-shirt. He asked about it. I was an EMT B student at the time. Let me offer the warning on the traffic violation, the inspection, and the registration. My mom was a nurse for 20 years and a serial speeder. If she was wearing her scrubs, there was almost no chance she was getting a ticket. Story 4. Actual police officer here. In order to maximize your chances of being let off with a warning, please have a valid license, have valid and current proof of insurance with you or in the vehicle, do not have open containers of drinks in the vehicle, have all children secured using proper restraints, do not argue over the reason for the stop. I saw what I saw. It's recorded on my in-car camera. If you wish to contest the citation, please appear in court on the day and time I assign on the bottom of your ticket. You have every right to tell me what you believe happened, and I will take the time to discuss whatever violations occurred. Follow my requests. Do not refuse to produce identification or proof of insurance until I tell you why I stopped you. All in good time. Story 5. Actual cop here. I'll start by saying everyone is different, so every situation is different. My policy is honesty goes a long way. I know why I pulled you over and what's going on. You cannot talk yourself out of a ticket, but can definitely talk yourself into one. Looking at you, am I being detained? Basically, if a person is upfront and honest with me, I can work with them. No insurance? Always lie about how they have insurance when I can see the exact day and policy they terminated. That totes a ticket and an impound. Don't lie to me and I tell you that you basically messed up. Park your car in this lot, call a friend to get you. Still totes a ticket, but get insurance fixed immediately and I'll see what I can do. But once again, all situations are different. I remember during December, I was on a warnings only theme. Pulled a guy over for rolling through a gas light, was going to give him a slap on the wrist and send him on his way. Walk up to the car, windows rolled up, ask him to roll it down, and he yells, "You can hear me fine." Well, at that point, he was getting a ticket. He then went on to tell me it was his right to travel on roads, usual sovereign citizen BS, and told him, "Sure, you get a license, so you don't need to argue with me about it. Here's a ticket. Merry Christmas." Story 6. I'm not a cop, but I was let off going pretty fast down the highway, was pulled over. Now, since I had passed the last exit ramp, my stomach was in knots. I had to go to the bathroom, ASAP. A cop pulled me over and I was sweating and told him that if I didn't make it to the restroom soon, I was going to blow. Told him that he could follow me 2 miles to the rest area, wait outside the bathroom, and then I would take any punishment he deemed necessary. He laughed, followed me to the exit with his lights, and waited outside the family bathroom. I'm sure he heard the explosion. I came out and he said, "I can see you weren't lying." As he did, in fact, hear me. He let me off with a warning and we go about our day. You know, that's a pretty unique way to negotiate a speeding ticket. I'm surprised he didn't offer him a roll of toilet paper, you know? Story 7. We got let off once because our 3 boys who were sitting in the back seat went crazy when they saw the officer walk up to the window. Crazy, like so excited to see a police officer in real life like he was a unicorn or celebrity. Boys, police officer, look, policeman, hi, police officer, hi. Officer, license and registration. Boys, it's a policeman, a police officer, hi. Me, okay guys, shh, that's enough. They completely ignore me and keep on begging him to notice them. Guy looks behind us, kind of snickers for a second at our crazy brood, and I'm thinking, ugh, I wish they would stop. He leaves, comes back after like 30 seconds and tells us to slow down and watch out because of the speed limit change at the state border we just crossed. Then he turns and does this subtle kind of acknowledgement nod to our 2-year-old who is basically whispering, chanting policeman under his breath this whole time, and they all explode in this cackling howl of appreciation. All right, so can we get this made into a video? Best PSA ever. Kind of like a Charlie bit my finger, but more like police officer saw me. Story 8. Last time my husband got pulled over, we had a loaded weapon in the glove box. Being in Texas, that's perfectly legal. As soon as the officer got to my window, his window is broken so it won't roll down. We told him through the sunroof, my husband told him about the weapon. As I was retrieving the insurance from the glove box, I was very slow and made a point to avoid the weapon. I had to dig for a minute, but as soon as I grabbed it, I slowly pulled it out and handed it to him, slowly closing the glove box. Slowly, in case you didn't catch that. He thanked us for being honest about the weapon and making sure we were very obvious about not trying to use it on him, and complimented me on my cute baby in the backseat and gave us directions around the floodwaters to get us back to our new home. All of our normal routes were flooded. Cops are polite most of the time when you show 100% compliance. Story 9. Former police officer here. Patrol officers and deputies don't typically like to write tickets. If they do, they're either bored or looking for something to do so they don't get yelled at for not being proactive, or you did something really stupid in front of them. Motor officers, cops on motorcycles, are almost universally assigned to traffic. Their job is to write tickets. If they stop you, you're probably going to get scratched. Highway patrol officers typically have traffic as their primary mandate. In California, CHP writes tickets. That's their job. In states that have state police, I imagine their mandate varies. You'll see a lot of YouTube videos and articles that tell you not to admit you did anything wrong, as the officer will write that in their notes. I don't necessarily agree with that, but to each their own. I can honestly say a very high percentage of the time the officer has decided whether or not they will cite prior to walking up to the car. Having said that, things that will almost certainly get you a ticket: being a schmuck, screaming, "Am I being detained?" repeatedly, making any reference to being a free man or the Articles of Confederation, telling the officer he can't do something, or asking why he stopped you for no reason, asking for a warning, things that might get you out of a ticket, taking responsibility, having a good reason for whatever offense was committed, generally just being polite and respectful to the officer. even if he's being a schmuck. Yes, I acknowledge some of my former brethren have a big schmuck chip on their shoulder. There really isn't any magic. As I said, if the officer has a traffic mandate, you'll probably get scratched. If it's some patrol cop, you'll probably get off with a warning. If you're a schmuck, you're getting scratched anyway. Story 10. I didn't have my headlights on pulling out of a gas station and got pulled over. They weren't on for about 30 seconds. He pulled up behind me and I realized by mistake. I turned them on, waved back to the officer to thank him for letting me know. He proceeded to pull me over. I was very polite. Yes, sir. No, sir. And owned up to it, and he gave me a $300 ticket, and I ended up getting community service. I was 17. Now, I respect police and realize they get a lot of undeserved crap, but it's hard to have a lot of faith in the police after a situation like that. And it's frustrating when one of my friends has been pulled over for speeding 4 times and has gotten off with a warning by playing stupid. Story 11. Keep your hands where I can see them when you aren't reaching for anything. When you do reach, move slowly. Be honest with me, and if your circumstances suck, such as you just got divorced, you have your prior speeding offenses but are late to something meaningful, or you just failed somehow but are having an awful day, week, month, I'm inclined to give you a warning if you appear to be truthful and not trying to escape a ticket and a fine. Do not hand me a get out of this violation for free card with your license. The greater Cleveland area is famous for handing out cards that announce you are the child of a cop, relation of a cop, child of a judge, or someone special in any Ohio. This angers me off more than what you did to get pulled over. I want to tell you to go screw yourself and tell whoever gave you that card to do likewise, but I won't. Instead, I'll hand you back your BS card and tell you it's inappropriate and unnecessary and write you a citation anyway because you've duly earned it, you card-wielding schmuck. Story 12. City cop here. Things I like to see or hear. 1. Honesty. You might not get away for free, but I'm more likely to drop it down to something lesser. 2. If you have a weapon, please tell me you have it and where. Then don't reach near it without telling me and me saying okay, then there's no mistaking anything. I know you don't need to tell me, but let's chalk it up to common decency. 3. The traffic stop isn't the time to argue with me. Save the debate for court. Let's both move on with our night. 4. Don't cry. It's just a traffic infraction. 5. If you feel like I'm doing something wrong, ask to speak to my supervisor or call the non-emergency phone number after the stop is complete. Please remember though, I'm recording us. Don't make things up and waste everyone's time only to retract your complaint when my supervisor says he's going to watch the video and call you back. To me, a traffic stop is the most dangerous part of the job. Everything about the car I'm pulling over is unknown and I have no idea what the traffic driving by is going to do. I try to have every stop done in 8 minutes or less for this exact reason. Story 13. I live in a small redneck suburb of Nashville. I was working a midnight shift several years ago and was pulled over in my driveway. Officer told me, I saw you in front of XXXX and lost sight of you. I told him he must be mistaken as I came home a different way and had even bought gas at a pump about 7 miles from the alleged sighting. The argument was to no avail. I got a ticket. I made sure that the officer included the exact time and location of the observed speeding. I go to court and plead not guilty. The judge asked the officer to take the stand. He did and told a story of witnessing me driving near XXXX at a specific time. He finishes. The judge asked me to present my evidence. I stated, I have a receipt from a gas pump 7 miles away at the same time as Officer XXXX witnessed me. I gave the receipt to the bailiff. The judge got a puzzled look on his face and dismissed my ticket. On the way out with my back to the judge, I flipped off the cop and mouthed, screw you, to him, the worthless piece of trash. Story 14. Not a cop. I have a few steps I follow. 1. Turn off the car entirely. They won't worry about me driving off. Reducing their concerns is my main goal here. 2. Have license, insurance, and registration available when they arrive at my window. I don't want to be reaching for anything when they come up. Again, it puts them at ease. 3. I'm always polite, but not overly so. You can come off as fake if you're too much of a butt kisser. Usually I just call them officer instead of sir, and that seems to go over pretty well. 4. I always admit what I've done. I've only ever been ticketed when I try to come up with an excuse for it. 5. While they're looking over my registration and license, I ask them how their night has been. They're people too, and they don't get treated like it enough. This contributes a lot to the us versus them mentality, so I do what I can to counteract that. 6. I always make sure to wish them a good night, whether or not they've ticketed me. The fact is, if I'm getting a ticket, I probably deserved it. It's not their fault, it's mine. They're just doing their job. I don't know whether they keep notes on people or whatever in their reports, but on the off chance that they do and that comes up if I get stopped again, they might be nice to me. Even if they don't, it's the right thing to do. Story 15. Got a ticket last night, actually. Officer got me going 89 and 65 on a toll road. That speed limit on that road is BS, by the way, but that's not his fault. Anyway, I did the usual. License and insurance ready, hands on the wheel. He was a little nervous at first. He asked me to roll down all my windows, but I didn't hear him the first time, so he kind of yelled at me. Anyway, once he saw that I was compliant, he calmed down pretty quick, very polite, asked me why I was speeding and told him I was in a hurry to get home and an idiot. He asked me for my registration, which I couldn't find, and he also noted that my DL address was out of date by more than a month. He ended up writing me a ticket for speeding, but didn't add the out-of-date license address or missing registration, so I suppose being polite paid off. I don't really do it to get out of tickets, they're just doing their job, and I try not to make it more difficult for them than it has to be. Story 16. Georgia police here. I'm very big into traffic because every car is kind of like a Christmas present from a family member that doesn't know you. It's a complete surprise on what you might find. Personally, I only write real tickets for 3 different reasons. 1, are you being a schmuck and making me argue on the side of the roadway? I refuse to argue on the side of the roadway. It's not cool. So they don't believe me and I'll find themselves in court against a video camera. 2, how dangerous is whatever you did? Did they drive the wrong way on a major roadway? Happens all the time. Speeding 20 miles per hour and over, blowing a stop sign without even trying to stop or look. Seatbelts, wear your freaking seatbelt. 3, have you been stopped recently for the same exact thing? Have I stopped you for it before? Happens way too much. This mostly applies to equipment violations. I had a guy whose third brake light was acting like a spotlight, lens was missing. Wrote a warning to him and told him to fix it. Found him 2 weeks later with it still broken because it was super hard to miss and blinding. He ended up with a real citation. I admit I accidentally wrote him for the wrong thing, so he got off slightly cheaper than he should have. I have a printer with a CAD program which autofills my citations. I can complete a warning faster than a real citation. I stop a load of cars because real criminals drive every kind of car. I just don't write real tickets unless you are a schmuck or doing something stupid. Exclusion to all of my rules are vehicle collisions. I am required to write a real citation on all offenses unless I can articulate otherwise. I try my hardest not to write citations for people with commercial driver's licenses because if they get suspended, then they are out of a living. I have successfully avoided all commercial driver's license tickets on accidents that I've encountered. Story 17. It all depends on the cop. I was pulled over at night a few months back and this D-bag cop said, "What's all that perfume for, son? Are you trying to hide the smell of something?" I was nice the whole time. Yes, sir. No, sir. I wear polo blue, and it is strong, yes, but I had to put it on when I left my house 5 minutes ago. I had to sit there and wait for 30 minutes until more cops showed up to search my car. It was about 90 degrees out, and these cops were sweating and angry that they found nothing. He gave me a ticket for failure to use turn signal, which was BS because I always use my blinkers. When I asked him where did I turn when I failed to use it, he would keep dancing around the question and never answer it. I hope that schmuck is happy that my insurance is now going up and I have to pay for something I didn't do. It's cops like him that make people hate the police. But if you're enjoying the video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 18. There's a lot of be honest and own up to it advice in here, and I have to say I disagree. When a cop comes to your window and asks, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" they're seeking out what's known as an admission against interest, which is a statement that can be used against you in court even though it might normally be considered inadmissible hearsay. Caught speeding? Try this approach. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" "I'm not sure, officer." "I clocked you doing 80 in a 65. "Well, I was watching the cars around me. I wasn't looking down at my speedometer too much." You still come off as honest without hurting your potential defense. When the cop is deciding whether to write you a ticket, they won't have mentally checked their admission against interest box off. So everything else being equal, this probably improves your odds of getting a warning. Story 19. Not a cop, but had an interaction recently. There is this long, dark road on my way home from the next town over that is mostly 40 and 45. I was driving home late one night after a party, and when I'm nearly home, the blue lights come on and I pull over. I roll down my window and kept my hands on the wheel. My wife was also in the car. The officer comes over and says, "Good morning," to which I glance at the clock and realize it's 1:30, so I respond partially, joking, "Well, so it is. Good morning to you too, officer." He then asks if I knew why he had pulled me over. My honest replied that I did not. He noted that I had missed the small section, maybe 20 seconds of driving where the road drops from 45 to 35, and I had gone through it at a little over 50. I apologized and said I simply had not seen the sign, to which he responded, "No problem. It happens to all of us. Just wanted to make sure you're aware of it. Let me check your license and you're good to go." He took my license, came back a few minutes later, and wished us a good night. I make a point of noting that section of road now and am pleased that most officers are not like the police we see in the headlines getting in trouble. They're just people trying to do their job and be a good person. Story 20. Not a cop here, but when I was a kid, I was riding down RT-64 with my friend and his parents to get some ice cream. His dad was driving and was probably going over the speed limit. I was young, not paying attention. Then the lights come on from behind us. Before anyone could say anything, his dad continues looking forward and says, "Nobody say a word." The officer eventually walks up to the dad's window and begins the usual spiel. Without saying a word, the dad hands the officer his license and registration. The officer then asks if he knew why he pulled us over. With a semi-blank look on his face and in an apologetic tone, the dad responds back in pure Serbian. Serbian, 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 Serbian. I don't speak Serbian, but it was something along those lines. The officer looks puzzled and says, "I pulled you over for going 65 in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. Serbian, 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 64, Serbian." The officer repeats the reason he pulled us over. Serbian, Serbian, 64, Serbian, 64, 64. The officer tries one more time. Serbian, Serbian, 64, points to the sign that says 64. We just happened to be close to one of the route signs, Serbian. This went on for another couple of rounds. Eventually, the cop gave up and said he would give him a warning, but only after trying to get the message across that the speed limit was 50, and the dad semi-acknowledging that he understood. It was crazy, and I don't think it would happen today, but it happened. Story 21. I got this from a thread a while back and put it in my Evernote for reference. Definitely sound advice. Acknowledge the officer by turning on flashers. To let the officer know that you've seen his lights and that you plan on pulling over, turn on your emergency flashers. If you think you'll need to drive a distance before you can find a safe place to pull over to a safe area. Find a neighborhood or pull in somewhere that will be safe for the officer to step out and approach your vehicle. Turn off the engine, roll down your window, and turn on your dome lights. As soon as you come to a stop, turn off your engine and roll down your window. If it's dark out, turn on your dome light so the officer can see what's going on inside the vehicle as he approaches. Stay in the car. If you get out of the car as soon as you stop, it may give the impression to the officer that you're going to be aggressive or you have something to hide in the car. Stay calm. It's common to get amped up when you get pulled over. Take some deep breaths and relax. Stay still and keep your hands on the steering wheel. Keep your hands resting on the wheel and remain still as the officer approaches your vehicle. You don't want to give him or her any reason to believe you're a threat. Keep your answers short and don't admit wrongdoing. Everything you say to an officer is admissible in court, so if you plan on fighting your ticket, don't say anything that indicates you are guilty. Officers will typically ask questions to get some sort of admission out of you when they first walk up to your window. For example, if the officer asks you, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Don't say, "I was speeding, sir." Simply say, "No," or "I don't know." If you definitely did something wrong, like run a stop sign or drive through the gore line, just better bite and apologize. Be real and honest and your chances of getting a warning increase. Wait for the officer to ask for your documents. Don't try to expedite the process by getting your license and registration ready while the officer approaches your car. For all he knows, you could be reaching for a weapon or trying to hide some sort of incriminating evidence. Wait until he or she gets to the window and asks for your documents. Move deliberately. When you do reach to get your license and registration, do so deliberately. If your wallet is in a gym bag in your back seat, let the officer know before you turn around and rummage for it. Quick tip. Try to keep your glove compartment relatively organized and your documents together so that when you pull the box open, you don't have to frantically search to find your registration. If you're carrying a weapon, let the officer know. Some states have laws that require concealed carry owners to inform officers that they're carrying a weapon anytime they get pulled over. These are called must-inform states. Officers are allowed to ask for and hold the weapon for the duration of the stop. Even if you don't live in a must-inform state, as a courtesy to the officer, you might want to disclose the fact that you are carrying. Nothing puts an officer on red alert like seeing a print of a weapon through a motorist's clothes. Return hands to the steering wheel. After you've handed the officer your paperwork, return your hands to the steering wheel, and then keep your hands visible to the officer. Be civil. Be polite and respectful in your communications with the officer. Yes, it is terrible to get a ticket, but calling the officer names, threatening him, and being rude won't get you anywhere. In fact, it could make things worse. If the officer happens to be a woman, refer to her as officer or ma'am, not sweetheart or honey. She's an officer of the law. Show some respect. You don't have to consent to a search. In order to search your vehicle without your consent, an officer needs probable cause. Maybe he smells something in the car or sees a bottle on your seat. If he doesn't have probable cause but wants to search your car anyway, He'll need your consent and may ask you something like, "You don't mind me taking a look in your car, do you?" Even if you haven't done anything illegal, it's usually a good idea to exercise your Fourth Amendment right in this situation and decline the search. While you may believe you have nothing to hide, you never know what could come up. Maybe a friend left an empty can in your back seat during a tailgate party and the officer will charge you with an open container violation. Politely decline the search by saying, "I do not consent to a search, officer," loud enough so he gets it on the police recorder. That's it. Don't argue. The side of the road is not the place to argue a charge. If you do want to contest a ticket, you can do so in court and in front of a judge. Sign the citation. If the officer decides to issue a citation, he'll ask you to sign it. Sign it. It's not an admission of guilt, it's just recognition that you've received the citation and that you promise to either pay the fine or show up to court on the designated date. A signature on a citation in most jurisdictions is in lieu of you posting a cash bond. Posting a cash bond generally consists of a trip to the nearest jail or judge and may include a booking process and fingerprinting. It is always easier to just sign the ticket. Be safe when merging back into traffic. Take your time to store your belongings before you re-enter traffic. And if you're upset, just collect yourself before driving away. And when you're ready, turn on your signal and merge back into traffic. Story 22. I'm not a cop, but I did get away with getting a ticket. I think if you're honest with them, it's your best bet. One night I was driving home from a friend's house and I was trying to get home as quickly as possible because I was paranoid from watching Insidious the previous night with my girlfriend. He pulled me over and asked me why the hell I was going so fast, and I explained to him how my girlfriend forced me to watch a scary movie and I was freaking out. The cop, shook his head, started laughing at me, pulled out his phone because he wanted to get my confession out on video, then let me go. Story 23. Last time I got pulled over, I was doing 73 and a 35. We all make stupid decisions, but it was a straight road, at least 5 miles long. Anyways, when I was flying down the road, I saw 2 cars approaching coming the opposite way, and I didn't think much about it till I passed a second car and it was a cop. I knew I was screwed. 73 and a 35. That's a mandatory court date, and I'd have to explain to the judge why I was speeding so fast. I pulled over immediately after the cop flicked on his lights, came up to my window and said, "So you know why I'm pulling you over?" All I said was, "Yes, sir," and "No, sir," the entire time. He appreciated the respect I was giving him, asking me why I was speeding and how it'd be a shame if I became another tally on the road. I told him I was sorry and that he would never see me speeding like this ever again. Said he understands and that he was in my situation once making stupid choices at my age. I'm 20. So instead of a $350 speeding ticket and a court date with the judge, I got a $120 speeding ticket and he let me go. Moral is, just admit to it. Don't try to BS and don't give them sass. Some of them are actually pretty cool and will let you off with no trouble. But if you're being a schmuck, then you're screwed. Story 24. Been pulled over for highway speeding 10, 15 times? I have about 7 to 9 tickets over the last 6 years across 3 states. I have around a 30 to 40% chance of getting off most days, which isn't bad. My routine is, 1, I have a huge, goofy smile on my driver's license. Don't know if that does anything. 2, if I'm alone on the highway and I see the cop pull out behind me, I won't wait for the lights to go on. I'll just pull over. 3, common courtesies. Don't waste his time or make him shout. I have my license, insurance, and proof of registration out when I get pulled over. My passenger window rolled down and the music off. 4, the answer to, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" is, I wasn't paying attention to my speed, but I'm guessing I either have a light out or I'm speeding. 5, the answer to, "You were doing 80-something and a 65 is, "I apologize, officer, that is too fast." 6, the answer to, "What was the reason you were speeding?" is, "It's been a long day, just getting off work and heading home." Or, "Running a little late and my foot got a little heavy." Basically, the truth. Officers are people. They speed too, and for the same reasons we do. Give him a reason he'll empathize with, not some BS emergency. Being courteous, humble, and amiable makes all the difference. Basically, treat them how you would like to be treated on a 100-degree summer day on the side of a highway. There isn't a magic trick. Doing this has gotten me